All right, Ray. So we have Honda and Nissan to begin merger talks amid EV competition. I don't know that EVs have anything to do with this. We can dig into this a little bit later, but I feel like it's because Nissan is sucking and they're sucking really big right now, and they need some help. So now we have Honda that's going to step in, I would assume, and probably make some kind of offer, take over something. And we know that as times get tough, we've talked about this quite a bit, that it seems like mergers and acquisitions are going to be something that's commonplace in the car market. I foresee over the next 2 years, whether it be manufacturers just like this or it be big time dealerships. We've already seen dealerships change hands, but when things get tough, this is what happens in the car market.
Well, there's always going to be consolidation. And, would it make sense for Nissan, who is primarily a Japanese company, but, they have affiliations with, what is it, Renault and Peugeot? Because France owned a portion of them for an extended period of time, if they still don't. That maybe if there is some type of merger between Honda and Nissan, it can bring Nissan back to its roots, and certainly maybe if Honda were to take the lead, it could alleviate some of the quality issues that Nissan has experienced over the last several years. It would be I would be curious to see what happens, because realistically, Honda is one of the few truly large independent automobile manufacturers still out there, and
Yeah.
what that would mean for them.
Yeah, and we saw those reports. I think it was last week when we were
Yeah.
talking about this, where there was an insider reportedly that said Nissan will not be able to survive another 12 to 14 months.
Yes.
And I've seen that quote everywhere on the internet since we've talked about it. But if that's a true thing, then we both said it. Well, they're not going to go under. They're going to get acquired.
Yes.
But there's going to be some kind of merger or something. And this is probably the answer to a lot of the questions coming from that quote. And it's going to be interesting to see what kind of direction, if this they're just starting in negotiations. That's all that we're reporting on right now, is what this article is saying. But it's going to be interesting to see what kind of direction Honda would take Nissan in if this does happen. And my guess would be, okay, throw away those freaking CVT transmissions. Let's do that.
Yes, that would be the first thing that would change. And the first thought that came to my mind, and we started today's show with the Honda Prelude coming back, and if Honda and Nissan were to somehow merge, my goodness, would I love to see the Nissan 200 SX come back, which was at best a competitor for the Prelude. I used to drive those as demos. What a fun car they were. So maybe if Honda got involved with Nissan, they would bring back some nameplates that we haven't seen for years, and revitalize the company. But it'll be interesting to see how the whole thing plays out. If it's all going to play out towards an EV future, I don't know. But obviously, Nissan needs some help, and perhaps Honda feels like they're in a position that if it made sense, that they could go ahead and be part of the solution.
And here's the thing. We scream about this all the time, about affordability in the car market. But here's the problem. Nissan provides some of the cheapest vehicles that you can get on the new car side of things. I think probably just about the cheapest thing that you can go out there and buy. Well, it was the Mitsubishi Mirage, but they're not making that anymore. That was under 20 grand.
Yes.
But you can go buy it's either a Sentra or a Versa right now for right at $20,000, just a hair above that. That's the MSRP on it. It's not an affordability problem with Nissan. It's a product problem. And this is something that I'm very interested to see Honda come in and step in and really help out. they're going to probably do away with some models of Nissan. You'll probably never see those ever again.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll get some new products in the pipeline. Now, the pipeline usually takes a long time, so
Yes.
we're looking at 2-3 years down the road. But hopefully Honda can step in and be able to do that. And I mean, Nissan's a brand that's been around for a long time, and we want to see it be successful. And the way that we need to see it be successful, they got to change some things, because they're not going to make it the way it's going right now, especially if we step in and get some tariffs in the next year or so.
Yeah, we definitely they need to have a hit. They haven't had a good solid launch of a new type vehicle in a long time, where the public is just so enamored with it that everybody's clamoring to get one. And that, whether that's design wise, whatever, but they need to have a hit, and they haven't had one, and perhaps maybe Honda could help them find that.
Yeah, and here's a comment that says that exactly. We don't want cheap. We want quality for our money, that works and lasts. And I can tell you from my experience of being a used car dealer going to these auctions, if there's a Nissan and it's over 5 years old and it's got a CVT transmission, it doesn't bring any money at all, because every other dealer knows the exact same thing that I know. Stay away from that car. That car is a piece of trash.
Yep.
So Honda is one of the better brands as far as reliability and keeping their values up on the used car market, and that helps when people go to decide what kind of new car that they're buying. That's what Nissan needs right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right now it ain't working. All right, Ray. So we've got a vehicle that has not been out. I think it's like 25 years now, but this was actually my very first car that I ever owned when I was 15 years old. It was a straight drive Prelude, and it had I don't know if you remember. You have to remember. This was a 91, and it had the lights that flipped up like this.
Yes.
Oh my goodness, I was so cool. It was a straight drive. I was 15 years old. How could it get any better than that? But this is a cool looking car.
Let me help you. You weren't cool. The car was cool.
Okay? No, I was cool.
Yeah, the Honda Prelude, which had been around, I think, since '79. They kept it in their portfolio from '79 to 2001, and it was. I remember selling a pre-owned one and going for a test drive, and it's a coupe. So there's not normally a lot of room, and it's difficult to get in the back seat. And I haven't always been this old, but for whatever reason, I've always kind of felt old. And trying to get into the back seat of a Honda Prelude so you can take it for a test drive, my goodness, that was a challenge. A challenge that, well, I lived up to at the time, but they were a fun car to drive, and there's some, look at them all.
Yeah, here it is. This is what I had. I had a white one too, and I was so cool. Look, how can you not be cool in that car?
Well, Pee Wee Herman wouldn't be cool in that car, but the car would still be cool. Okay, yeah, that was a beautiful car. You know what my first car was? A 1969 Camaro with a.
Oh, you were cool. You were cool too. That was awesome. Yeah.
It was a 3 on the tree. It was a manual transmission, and I didn't know how to drive a stick when I bought the car, so that was an adventure. And then my second car, which I thought, and you can pull up a picture of this if you want. My second car was an Opel GT, which was. And I thought that made me cool, but it was just the car that was cool. I wasn't cool.
I don't even know how to spell that. Here,
OPEL.
Yeah, I got it.
GT. Okay, it looked like a mini Corvette, and it was. I had an orange.
Goodness, that thing is bad.
Yeah. I had an orange one. Yeah, like yeah. Oh my God! And there was this lever on the console that you would push forward to make the headlights go up. And then you would pull it back to retract the headlights. It was really, I bought that because I couldn't afford the 240Z at the time. the 240Z was like $800 or $900 more than the Opel GT. And so that was my first real sports car.
So this, we'll go through. So Honda's Prelude will return to the U.S. after a 25-year hiatus.
Yes.
It's the 6th generation of the coupe. I didn't know they had 6 generations of this thing.
Yeah.
But it was, it's going to be just a hybrid. That's it. And it goes on sale late next year. Honda said December 17th. How are they picking a date for that already? I would assume that they're probably not going to make that exact
made
drop
the
date.
announcement December 17th.
Oh, that makes more sense.
But it's going on sale late next year, which I personally think it is kind of exciting for them to bring that model back, because that was, coupes have never been particularly popular, but of all the ones out there that were somewhat popular, the Prelude was one of them. And that was always a fun, good-looking, sporty car for people, with, Honda reliability. It was a great car, and it's they're one of the few manufacturers out there that are trying to keep the sedan market going, and now they're going to bring back a 2-door coupe. I think there are any number of people who will be so excited to see the return of the Prelude. It is just another example of what is old is new again.
So over under, here's a new Honda Civic.
Yes.
And that's going to be very similar, I would assume, to what they're going to put the Prelude out. Maybe a little bit more.
Oh, the Prelude will be more.
You think more sporty? So that's what I was going to ask you. Over under. I know that you have some manufacturers that bring back some of these vehicles with the nameplates of these really awesome cars, but they make them just a really, really cheap version of them. And you don't think Honda's going that route with this, though?
No, I think it'll be bigger than the Civic. It might be Accord size, but in a coupe.
Okay.
Would be my guess, that it would be built on the Accord platform. That's just a guess. I didn't see that written anywhere. But yeah, those are always a pretty cool car. So I'm not a huge Honda fan, because I've always found, for the most part, Hondas to be somewhat boring cars, but the Prelude was not. That was not a boring. No, that was not a boring car. And
we have a Honda. We have a Honda Odyssey. It's like driving a spaceship. It's nothing boring about that thing at all.
Really? Okay. But the other Honda that wasn't boring, that I always was the S2000.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now that car, I don't know that most people realize this, but that car originally was going to be an Acura. And then they decided that what they would do is they would give the S2000 to Honda, and Acura would get the MDX before Honda would get the Pilot. So that was a pretty good trade-off as far as Acura dealers were concerned at the time.
What I'm disappointed about is the coolest thing about the Prelude.
Yes.
Were the flip-up lights. And this one's not going to have any flip-up lights.
Well, no, it's got those really cool LED lights. They're
going to cost $3,500 to replace. You ever replaced any? Well, see, when did you get out of the car business?
7 years ago.
7 years ago. So then they still had the LEDs that were all encapsulated into one thing. Think like GM. Whenever you were taking like trade-ins or stuff and you had LEDs, did you factor that into the trade-in value just because they cost so much to replace those headlights?
I did not at the time.
Oh my goodness.
I probably should have.
Yeah, it's crazy. Some of these GM products, like Tahoes, the Suburban, stuff like that have everything built into them. Like it can cost like $2,500 to replace some versions of these types of headlights, because you don't just buy the bulb, you don't just buy the LED bulb and plug it in there. it's built into the whole light.
housing.
So yeah,
Oh, that's crazy.
did I say 25,000? 2,500. 2,500 is what I mean.
You know, I forget what model it was that GM came out with, and
Flip up lights are illegal now, is what somebody's saying.
well, I don't know if that's true or not. But I can remember when there was a time that the GM came out with a car. I don't know if it was a V6 or a V8, but in order to get to the spark plug on the last cylinder, you had to loosen the motor mounts so you could jack the motor up high enough that you could actually get to the spark plug. Okay, so that is, so knowing that, it doesn't surprise me that they would come up with a headlight assembly that the only way to replace it is you have to replace the entire assembly, and it's going to cost you $2,500. That doesn't surprise me.
So we used to buy I guess they just don't exist anymore. I rarely see them, but we used to buy Chrysler Sebrings a lot.
Oh, I remember them.
Yeah, and I don't know if it was this model. I just typed in, I think 2001 or whatever.
Yeah.
But there was 1 year model of these Chrysler Sebrings, and I don't know if they did it multiple years or not. But to get the battery out,
yeah,
you had to take the front wheel off.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah, perfect sense, right? And the reason they do that, and there's, I mean, there's things today that works the same way, where they make it to where you have to take the car into the actual dealership to get any of the simple maintenance stuff like battery. What I figured out what I could do is I could crank the wheel as hard as I could one way, put a like a bungee strap on it to hold the wheel, since I was just doing it by myself, and I could just get my hand in there just enough to loosen the battery terminals, get the battery terminals off, and then wedge the battery out, so I didn't have to actually take the wheel. It would have taken me less time probably to just take the freaking wheel off and do it.
I would think.
But it was just that was the most frustrating thing when I was working on this car, because why would you make it like that? And I just question it, and then I figured it out later on as I got some years on me and got wiser why they would do that.
The whole thing is, in a lot of cars, when you look at things, it makes you scratch your head. I remember when I first started in the car business, and the first dealership I worked at was Iannaco Motors. It was Subaru and Dodge in 1977. Actually, the first new car I ever sold was a Subaru. And the thing that amazed me about the Subaru at the time was the spare tire was mounted above the engine. And so you would open the hood, you would see the spare tire, which you'd have to remove if you needed to do anything to the engine. But you know, you've heard me say this, I'm not the brightest guy. Okay. But I always thought to myself, the one thing I know about cars is that the engine compartments get hot. And the other thing that I know is that heat is bad for rubber tires. So I was thinking that by the time you got a flat and you needed to replace that flat with the spare, that the spare would be so dry rotted from sitting over the engine the whole time that the spare would be flat, that there would be no way that the spare could possibly be usable. Now, how could any engineer or designer who knows this, how could they say, yep, let's put the damn tire under the hood on top of the engine? How does that happen? I mean, how does somebody sign off on that going, that's a damn good idea?
Well, on top of that, the most likely place for there to be a fire in a car is going to be in your engine compartment, right? And from what I know, Yeah, rubber, very flammable,
Yeah,
very flammable.
rubber burns.
Yeah, yeah. It is weird to see some of these things come out. What you're mentioning, like these are the best engineers on the planet, right? That are designing these cars, and it's so interesting to see them put a battery where you got to take a wheel off. They're putting a spare tire in the engine compartment.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of this stuff just make. I can tell you one thing. Okay, we get comments all the time like, "Oh, Tesla's the best car." You got all these Tesla fanboys, and the cars are situated to be luxurious and basic. I can tell you one thing that drives me freaking crazy. I've got a 6-year-old, and he has a car seat, and in the back, the seat belts are in the seat. They don't come out of the seat like a normal freaking seat belt.
Yeah.
They're built basically into the seat. So I have to basically pull his car seat over to the side so I can put his seatbelt in and then push him back over the seatbelt where the car is built the way that it's built. It can't be safe.
How often do you do that?
Every day. Every day.
Wow. Please drive safe.
Yeah.
That's all I'm asking. Just drive safe. Yeah, I mean, there are certain things that I have seen over the course of my lifetime in the automobile industry that have just absolutely amazed me. As to how anybody could have thought this is a great idea. This is, I don't know. Do you remember there was a time where before you could stick 6 CDs into the radio that was built into the dashboard, there was typically a CD holder that held 6 CDs, and that was in your trunk.
Or in the glove box.
In a lot of cases, it was in the trunk. Okay? Now, how convenient is that when you're driving down the road and you've listened to all 6 of those CDs already, and you say, I think I just want to pull over and put 6 new ones in. So you got to pull over, you got to put the car in park, you got to turn the damn thing off, you got to go back to the trunk. I mean, who thought of this stuff? And who signed off on it?
I can tell you, I mean, this is just a whole episode of us bitching and moaning. I get it. But the other thing that I hate, my wife has a brand new Odyssey.
Yeah.
The thing that I hate about a lot of these new cars now is they have the auto, like, turn off your motor whenever you come to a stoplight.
Stop. Yeah.
That drives me absolutely insane, because the thing about it is it takes your car a second then to turn on and then you take off. But another thing too is, like, when it's hot during the summer here in the South where I am, your air conditioning gets not as cold whenever the motor turns off. Yeah, I hate it. I hate it so much. Is that an EPA thing? Is that required by the?
You can turn it off. You can.
I know you can turn it off, but it's built into the car.
Well, it's built into the car because it helps the manufacturers hit their mandatory gas mileage demands from the government. Okay, so having the auto start and stop in the engine allegedly uses less fuel because, well, the engine shut off.
Right.
So it improves your fuel economy, and so it makes it easier for these manufacturers to hit the CAFE standards that have been set for the entire fleet of vehicles. Yeah, I mean, minis, I have that in my Mini. I've had that in several of my Minis. I've just gotten to the point where I'm just used to it. I don't even think about turning it off.
Yeah, it drives me absolutely insane. And I guess I'm just looking for it. I don't know. I don't know. And I don't drive my wife's van enough, I think, to get used to it. So it just continue to drive me crazy every time I actually get into her van.
I wonder if they'll have that start stop in the new Prelude for you.
Oh, I'm sure they will. I'm not buying one, though. It won't matter to me.
Come on, man. It was your first car. You might feel compelled to have to, wait another 10 years so you'd be able to buy a used one. You never know.
How much? I wish they had put a price here. How much do you think it's going to be if you had to ballpark it?
If I had to ballpark it, 38 grand base.
Really?
Yeah. What do you think?
I was thinking high 20s. I was thinking they would need to have it lower than an
It's a
Accord.
it's a it's a it's a hybrid.
Yeah, but I mean, they have Civics that are hybrids that are like
Okay.
lower 20s, I think.
You think it'll be the upper 20s?
I think it's gonna have to be.
Okay.
Maybe, you know what? It doesn't matter what's gonna have to be or not. They're gonna pound the price out of it anyway. It doesn't matter. it'll be $58,000. That's how
Well,
much it'll be.
well, the special edition will be. The launch edition will be. Yes.
Yeah. No, you're right. It'll be high 30s probably. I don't
That's just a
think it
guess.
should be, but it will be. Yeah.
You know, it's not like there's a huge market. I mean, it's got to be more than the Civic, because you can get the Civic in a hatchback. It's not a real coupe, but
You know what? We have the power here. We might be able to find this out.
I'm just guessing. I'm thinking it'll be in the mid to upper 30s base.
Oh, here we go. We got it. It's right in the middle of both of us, I think. Let's see here. Oh, here's a starting at price, so we know how good those prices are. Starting at $31,000
estimate. Okay.
Well, that's an estimate right here.
Yeah. Okay.
So that means that's going to be your version that you'll never be able to find. So it'll actually end up being what you said. It'll be high 30s. Yeah.
At least mid 30s. Yeah, for a decent one. So there you have it.
Yeah. So here, these starting out prices piss me off so much. So I went to this auto show, 2 weeks ago, whenever we went. I think it's like 2 or 3 weeks ago. And they had all the starting prices for all these cars, and there was a Colorado that was really nice there. It said starting at $29,500.
Yeah.
They had a Tahoe there. It said starting at $55,000.
Yeah.
They had Corvettes, one of the new Corvettes, starting at $65,000. I'm thinking, I've been to all these dealerships.
Yeah.
I've never even seen one of these vehicles that they're showing these starting prices within a $10,000, not even touching it.
Yeah.
Within $10,000 of the price they say. It's ridiculous. How many of these starting price vehicles do they actually make? 3?
Perhaps. You know, the dealers don't want them.
Right.
You know, there's and most of the customers don't want them. You know, the lower trim base model vehicles, the ones that I keep saying the manufacturers need to build more of. One of the reasons that the manufacturers don't build more of them is because when they do build them and the dealers get them, the customers always want the next trim level up. Man, I got awfully light here all of a sudden.
Yeah, your camera's going back and forth. It's actually funny to me. I'm keeping track of it.
Yeah. So where the hell was I going with this? I don't even remember what I was talking about before all of a sudden somebody shined a headlight on me or something.
All right, so all of you watching it here, I know most of you are not subscribed, so I need you to hit that subscribe button. Whatever we need to do to get you to hit that subscribe button, Ray will do it. So just hit it for us and let us know what he needs to do down in the comments to get you to subscribe.